Hello, and thank you for watching this January 16th weather update, brought to you by Agrible, the makers of Morning Farm Report. My name is Eric Snodgrass, and I'm a senior atmospheric scientist and co-founder of Agrible. Well, over the weekend, the central United States and parts of the Midwest have dealt with a powerful ice storm that has caused a lot of damage and shut people into their homes for a few days now. These images are from parts of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri, where the greatest ice accumulations have been measured. It's amazing to think that about an inch of ice coating on trees like this can add over 15,000 pounds of additional weight to each tree. But here's my favorite picture. This one is from the Dodge City, Kansas National Weather Service office and shows how this dog's cage is now draped with long icicles. Well, the meteorology of an ice storm is fairly simple to explain. The feature we look for is to have a warm layer of air that advances toward the north and wedges itself in between two sub-freezing layers in the atmosphere. So let's use this National Weather Service graphic to explain what happens when an ice storm hits the central United States. First, a wedge of warm air pushes into colder air from Canada. As it rises into the cold air and pushes north, the depth of the warm air shrinks like you see here. The key to determining the precipitation type is knowing the depth of that warm wedge of air. Where it is really shallow, like it is right here, snow that falls from above into that air will melt partially, but as that partially melted snowflake falls out of this warm layer, it'll have enough time to refreeze into a small ball of ice called sleet or ice pellets. But where the warm wedge of air is deeper, like it is right here, the time the melted snowflake has beneath the warm air is very short. And rather than freezing before it hits the ground, it supercools and then freezes on contact with the ground. Now, on either side of this, you have rain and snow. So there's almost always a transition in winter storms from rain to freezing rain to sleet and then to snow as you shift from the south to the north. Well, here's the setup for Monday. A low-pressure system is forming east of the Rocky Mountains on the Colorado and New Mexico border. Warm, moist air is flowing out of the Gulf of Mexico and wedging itself into the cold air in place from Canada. See how to the south it is warm enough for rain, but right here there's enough cold air at the surface that these melted snowflakes that are falling from above will freeze on contact as they hit the ground. Well, then notice this. On the back side of the system, that's where you're going to get all your snow falling. So there's this very common transition in these winter storms, rain to freezing rain and sleet, and then on the backside, snow. Well, the problem is going to be right here. Through Monday night, this is the region that NOAA is forecasting will have at least an additional 1/10 of an inch of ice. And while that may not seem like much, it only takes 1/4 of an inch of ice to earn an ice storm warning. That's why ice storm warnings are out for such a large area to start off this week. And please remember this, drive very, very carefully on this stuff if you live in these regions. In fact, here's a video from Utah that AccuWeather posted of a snowplow getting cut off by an out-of-control semi. Remember that each year in the United States, over 1 million car accidents are blamed on wet or icy pavement. From those accidents, there are 600,000 injuries and over 5,000 deaths. Okay, so let's move into the forecast and start right here. This map shows the general flow pattern of the atmosphere through next weekend. The big thing we're watching is this. A large ridge is trying to block the flow of the Hudson Bay, which will force a deep trough into the west. This is going to do two big things for the United States weather this week. One, it's going to be warmer than average across the eastern half of the United States. Just look at how warm the eastern half of North America will be due to the presence of that ridge, while Alaska will be sent into a deep freeze. And this pattern hangs on for a while too. In fact, here's the day 8 through day 14 temperature anomaly forecast from NOAA, showing the continued eastern warmth and western cold. And then here's the second thing we have to watch. That flow pattern we just discussed sets up a strong Pacific jet stream, which translates into even more rain and snow for the western United States. It also means an active winter storm track through the central United States. Here's the 10-day precipitation accumulation map from the GFS model run on Sunday, and man, is it going to be wet. However, for snow lovers in the central and eastern half of the country, the tracks of each of these new low-pressure systems is too far to the north, and there isn't enough cold air to really make a lot of snow. So it will be warm and windy and wet in the short-term forecast. But this is why this is so important that we have such an active pattern. We're going to be targeting all of that rainfall to hit places in the United States that are struggling a lot with drought. We've already seen a dramatic change in the drought situation in California. In fact, in the last week, California had improved 18% in the area of the state that is now no longer in drought. And the region that was covered in exceptional drought, which is the highest category used in the drought monitor, dropped from 20% down to 2%. Over the coming week, we will see continued relief out west, as well as rainfall in the central United States, a region I had been quite concerned with, as if this region develops drought throughout the rest of winter and early spring, could spell some problems for the early part of next growing season. Now, while the next 10 days look warm and wet in the east and wet and cold in the west, it looks like things are going to be changing toward the end of the month and the start of February. There are some strong signals in the longer range forecasts that suggest that February locks back into a colder pattern at the beginning for the eastern half of the United States. Here we can see how the 51-member ensemble from the European model is projecting a shift toward a colder regime for February. We will keep a close eye on this pattern, as it could be quite snowy too for the Corn Belt. Well, as always, we at Agrible will bring you the latest and best weather forecast information through our morning farm report so that you can efficiently plan your operations. We thank you for your attention and hope you look forward to our next weather video update. Thank you.